This episode of the Craftsman Online podcast is sponsored by Bricks Masons. From elegant Masonic rings that showcase your commitment to our craft to finely crafted regalia and apparel that honor your tradition, Bricks Masons delivers quality and craftsmanship that truly stands out. Shop now at bricksmasons.com and use promo code CRAFTSMAN, that's CRAFTSMEN, to receive free shipping with your first order.
The comments, opinions, and views shared during this program are of those individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of a Grand Lodge, concordant body, appendant body, Masonic Authority, or craftsmanonline.com. Welcome to the Craftsman Online podcast, the only 5-star rated Masonic podcast endorsed by the Grand Lodge of New York. And now your host, Worshipful Brother Michael Arce.
Welcome back. You've joined us for an episode on Thursday night at the Rite. As from now through Thursday, April 25th, Master Masons can join Thursday night at the Rite, which is the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction's signature virtual degree program. And to tell us more about it this week is our guest, Illustrious Brother James Dill, who's on the Supreme Council and a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. Brother Dill, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
I'm sure a lot of our brothers that are listening who are Master Masons or just getting started out in the craft, and even just interested gentlemen, when you hear 32nd degree or 33rd degree Mason, that always gets people's attention. I just watched the recent Flowers of the Killer Moon movie, Scorsese's latest masterpiece that's now streaming on Apple TV. Bob De Niro, his character plays a 32nd degree Freemason. And people will hear that, and some will know to associate that with the Scottish Rite. Of course, the first 3 degrees of Masonry happen in a Blue Lodge, and then you pursue this extra education afterwards. What inspired you to become a Scottish Rite Mason, and how did you kind of go through the process of navigating to become a Scottish Rite member?
Well, I was pretty lucky, Michael, because first, it was easy to become a Mason because my father was a Mason and his father was a Mason. So I'm a legacy, so it's in my blood. But you're right, when you join an independent body, it's not always so easy because it's usually, as it was for me, a brother. A brother grabs you, he takes you by the hand, he brings you in. And if not for that, you probably would stay off. You wouldn't get involved. It's sad because it's kind of the way we see it in Masonic lodges sometimes, where you have the stranger that's sitting by himself, or a brother that's sitting by himself, and nobody goes over oftentimes, and helps that guy out, makes him feel part of the family. Well, I was lucky. A brother made me feel part of the family. And that's how I became a Scottish Rite Mason. And I'm a York Rite Mason. I'm a Shriner, but my heart is in the Scottish Rite.
We don't mean to have themes every year on our podcast, but this year we've really been diving more into some of the concordant and appendant bodies. And a lot of the brothers that we've talked to, very similar like you, are members of all 3 of the big groups outside of your Blue Lodge, but still are active in Blue Lodge. When you're a member of these groups, how do you budget the time to be able to do this? And most importantly, how does your significant other feel when you're out of the house all of the nights of the week to participate in these groups?
I think the answer is you can't. I think that is the truth. That we who work in an independent body, I work for the Scottish Rite, I think it is true that we're asking quite a bit out of very busy people to take more time away from their family, which we are proponents of strong family life, or to take away from your faith. We're proponents of a strong faith-based life. So it's very difficult. And I have to make decisions, as many brothers do. I don't participate very much in York Rite. I don't participate very much in Shriners because I do have a family. I have a life. And all of them enrich my life. But you really, as with anything, as with any hobby, you can only spend so much time participating in that and still be the person that's focused and responsible.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And especially kind of the rule at my house is that I have reached the limit of lodges and nights that I'm allowed to be out of the house with my wife.
Yeah.
And we could joke about that, but it is kind of a serious thing. And I'm glad you addressed that, because what I found interesting when I was looking into joining an appendant or concordant body, you kind of have the two major ones, I would say, that first you could break off to, which is the York Rite and the Scottish Rite. And the Scottish Rite, for me, it was amazing how organized they were. I want to talk about that first, because for your Blue Lodge guy that maybe only has a faint idea of what the Scottish Rite is, you're not organized by a lodge, you're organized by a valley, and we're used to lodges and districts. So explain the organization of the Scottish Rite and the Northern Masonic jurisdiction.
Well, on Thursday night at the Rite, I kind of explained it to this way for those new fourth degree candidates who are not aware yet. They're still just virtual brothers. They haven't met anyone yet. So I have to explain it this way. It really is very close to the way our Grand Lodge system is set up, except that instead of a lodge, we call it a valley. And in the Scottish Rite, we're lucky in that it's many lodges that make up one valley. So we get many more people to meet, many more people to become friends with, many more opportunities for fellowship. So instead of a lodge, we call it a valley. But it's very much the same thing. And it has its own internal leadership, just like a lodge does. And instead of a Grand Lodge, we have our Supreme Council. Instead of a Grand Master, we have a Sovereign Grand Commander. But they're very much similar. And for us in the Scottish Rite, well, it's actually true for all appendant bodies. For us, we have loyalty to the jurisdiction in which we reside. So for us in the Northern jurisdiction, which is the 15 states north of the Mason-Dixon line, we owe allegiance to each one of those Grand Masters. They're very important to us. And when we have our annual meeting, they come as our guests. They're honored guests, because before we're Scottish Rite Masons, we are Master Masons. And we all know this. It sounds cliche, but it's the truth. And we understand it in the appendant bodies. You're never more than a Master Mason. That is a badge of honor. 32nd degree is what Scottish Rite is all about. Those 29 degrees after your first three degrees in Freemasonry that hopefully they build upon each other. In the Southern jurisdiction, the degrees are more in line with the teachings of Albert Pike. In the Northern jurisdiction, they're much more modern in origin, and they all are supposed to help us understand the core values that are important in the Northern jurisdiction. So every degree, reverence for God, devotion to country, integrity, justice, tolerance, and service to humanity. So hopefully we weave those very important values, and ours is ever changing. I happen to be on the ritual committee for the Supreme Council, and we're always writing new rituals or editing and modernizing them to make them understandable for a newer audience.
One of the things that I find special about the Scottish Rite, especially brothers that are in either one of the jurisdictions, it is those 29 degrees that you talked about, and it's the story. And basically the same story that we get as a Master Mason in the Hiramic legend, the same principles of that are communicated throughout the Scottish Rite degrees, but in different ways. And not just in different ways, but through different people in different parts of time and in different situations. And I think that's what makes the degree so beautiful. It's also interesting, as you pointed out, that these degrees are updated or modernized over time. So for a member that would be joining today and going through the 29 degrees of the Scottish Rite in either jurisdiction, would it be fair to say that there's degrees that have been retired or are no longer done?
Yes, and that are new to even an audience who's been around for a while. So we have been writing a new degree, but it's such a long process because we vet it completely. We work really hard on it. We go to retreats and work on it endlessly. And it takes several years for it to happen. Where people will see differences is we edit them much more quickly. So if we, for instance, we have a degree that has something to do with Native Americans and colonials. When our brothers wrote it 100 years ago, they wrote it like John Ford would have told a Western, which would have been not very sensitive. So we are constantly looking at ways, and in fact, through the marketing department, I'm trying to reach out to some Native Americans that are Freemasons. Would you please look at this and help us? Because the message is really good. The message is about tolerance. It's not very tolerant the way they wrote it. So can you help us take this story that's part of our American history and make it so it's not offensive and we can all learn from it?
I want to talk about what also makes the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic jurisdiction special. And if a brother's been listening and they're like, okay, this is really all I needed to know, I'm so interested in doing this, I'm going to go to the website. And don't worry, we're going to put the link to the website in the episode notes for this podcast so that you can just click and get right there. There's the Thursday Night at the Rite program, which is what you're here to talk about. When did this get rolled out? And really, what's been the reception of Thursday Night at the Rite?
It's as a result of COVID. And, there's that saying that nothing good comes from bad. But that's not actually true here. Thursday Night at the Rite has changed the way we think about how we reach out, educate, and be with our members. On April 2nd, 2020, we had our first Thursday Night at the Rite because we realized the buildings were closed. No one could meet. Even within the first, I think it took us time to get used to COVID because immediately everybody was complaining like, I haven't seen anybody for 3 days. But then 3 days turned to 30 days, turned to 300 days, right? So we were very fortunate in that leadership at one time authorized the making of degrees into films. And it was really difficult to show it. It had to be in a closed setting. Those members who don't know it, one of the differences between Scottish Rite and Blue Lodge is we don't do degrees the way we do it in Lodge. We don't do it as ritual. We do it as elaborate stage plays. And part of the fun of being a Scottish Rite Mason is becoming involved even if you're not a great actor, there's all sorts of acting that happens on the stage by guys that are just brothers having fun together or in the production crew. And so on any given reunion, you literally may have 300-400 people all involved in rehearsals and doing the plays and friendships growing. And it's kind of cool. But technology now has allowed us to make them into films. So when the Sovereign Grand Commander said to us, what are we going to do? I said, well, we do have a library of film. The Sovereign Grand Commander had let me build a studio in-house about a year before that. So we had already started filming different people, different Masons talking about different subjects. So the first season happened with everything that we had in the can. It was a long, long season. It was every week. Unlike now, it's every other week. We had late night shows and early shows, and it just became very popular. But then we ran out of material, and COVID didn't go away. Season 2, it's very different because we built plexiglass barriers around us. We did readings of the degrees in a dramatic way. And but then COVID broke after season 2, and we went crazy. Now we travel all over the jurisdiction. Every episode, we go to a valley, no matter where it's at, and we film their stage production, and we interview their people so that people in Marquette, Michigan know what it's like to be a Portland, Maine Scottish Rite Mason.
The Craftsman Online podcast is now sponsored by BricksMasons.com, our favorite destination for all of our Masonic shopping needs. Whether it's apparel for yourself or a cool gift idea for another brother, make BricksMasons.com your online marketplace where tradition meets innovation. Invoke the noble spirit of the Knights Templar with your commandery belt buckle in antique silver adorned with a revered cross soleil. This meticulously designed belt buckle pays homage to the Templar legacy, featuring intricate details and a timeless antique silver finish. Elevate your attire with this symbol of chivalry and honor, celebrating the valor and heritage of the Knights Templar. Make a bold statement and exude the gallant essence of history with your distinguished belt buckle. Visit bricksmasons.com and explore their extensive catalog. Elevate your Masonic experience with style and substance. Plus, Craftsman Online podcast listeners use promo code CRAFTSMAN, that's CRAFTSMEN, at checkout to enjoy free shipping with your first order. Brothers, do you remember how you felt when you were first called to Freemasonry? The excitement of each degree? If you can still feel that call of the East, you're encouraged to apply to join the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic jurisdiction. The Scottish Rite offers Master Masons like you an opportunity to continue your Masonic journey and delve deeper into our craft through their 29 degrees. And there's an easy way to join the Scottish Rite. It's called Join the Rite Night, a virtual initiation where you can witness the requisite 4th degree and officially become a Scottish Rite Mason. There's 7 opportunities to join online from February 1st to April 25th. Here's what you do. Visit the Scottish Rite online at srnmj.us and click on the Join button. You can also join in person at a Scottish Rite reunion near you. Your journey to the 32nd degree in Freemasonry awaits. Take the first step at srnmj.us and click on the Join button today. I was a Scottish Rite Northern Masonic brother in your first season. I found myself to be just like interested gentlemen that were lucky enough to petition a lodge, get that petition to be read, and then bang, COVID caused a lot of the lodges everywhere. I was in upstate New York at the time, and we had the lockdown. And a brother of mine was like, hey, I'm thinking of joining the Scottish Rite. And I'm like, oh, well, how could we do any of this stuff? And he's like, because they have these online degree program nights Thursday night at the Rite, and they'll do it virtually. And I was like, well, this is kind of cool. And I remember tuning in, and it was like watching television again, and, appointment viewing. And sitting there with my bowl of popcorn, and I had my TV and my surround sound going, and I really enjoyed the production value in the degrees that were being streamed and shared. And I also enjoyed the fact that I was at home, that if I needed to get, refill my beverage or take a comfort break, I could go do that and then just come right back. And the challenge for me, though, is, as you mentioned, when the season ended and trying to go find a valley near me to go see the degrees in person, there were some complications with that. And then it didn't help when I moved down to DC, and then you had the Northern and the Southern, and what do I do? So that was kind of, in a nutshell, my time as a Scottish Rite Mason. But I really enjoyed it, and especially the stories and the degrees, and the ones that new brothers will get a chance to see, or brothers that just want to come back that are Scottish Rite Masons. I'm sure they're invited to tune in for Thursday night at the Rite. It really is a treat to see that, and you can really see the passion that's still there. It's I don't want to put the pressure, but it is like a Hollywood-like production that you'll be viewing on your screen.
Yeah, we try. So thank you for saying that. We work really hard at it. I'm privileged to not just be Thursday night at the Rite. I'm the director of all media. So my partner Marcus and I are the two that are responsible for the movies that are being made now, and we work really hard to make sure that we're both 33rd degree Masons. We're very proud of Freemasonry. So we hope that the product that we put out reflects that. So brothers feel pleased and proud of what they're watching, that they know we really cared.
I won't give away any of the secrets, but the first degree that brothers will observe as a Scottish Rite Mason, which is actually the 4th degree, the builder video, the way that ends, to me, as a Mason, but also as kind of a Star Wars fan and a huge fan of like prequels, the way that they set that up, you almost find yourself yelling at the screen like, no, don't go down that hallway, like, because you know it's going to happen, but it had to happen.
Well, that last scene that you're talking about, when you go from the pool of water to darkness, that was an accident. We literally were sitting there looking at each other saying, how do they know that this is Hiram going off? How do they know it? So it ended up being, we pulled a little ritual from the third degree that in Massachusetts, I don't know if it's the same as everywhere, but those words, that's kind of the words that are spoken. I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's important for people to know also that in the Scottish Rite, we hopefully are building on your Masonic education. So the fourth degree actually is the background of Hiram. Why was Hiram there? What was he doing? What might he have been thinking? What might he have been struggling with? How does he go off and have the incident that has become Masonic legend now, if he really existed? And we try to keep building off of that important life lesson about integrity.
Yeah, because the production value is so strong and so good, you don't feel like you're watching a show. You feel like it's just like if you were to pull up your favorite movie or a new movie that's streaming and get into it. There's a certain moment where you're like, "Oh, I'm witnessing acting." You forget about that, and it's an interesting experience because in the builder degree, you really find yourself as a master mason. It's immersive, and you find yourself going, "Wow, I didn't know that." As you were saying, like Hiram would have a lack of confidence or would be questioning, or this is why these things that we learn in the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry, the importance of deity and invoking the aid of deity before undertaking anything important, like these all little subtle things are expressed in that. And then from that story, you jump into a time machine and thanks to the Scottish Rite and you go somewhere else. And then the degrees I remember watching, one took place between 2 cowboys in the Old West. Another was during the Civil War. Then we traveled to World War II with 3 different men of faith and the challenge that they had. We headed back in time to the building of a temple that was being set up in Israel and a story that was happening there. And you hear about the different tribes of men. And it was fascinating. I can see why brothers would be drawn to this because you get 29 of these experiences beyond the 3 that you got.
I'll tell you also, Michael, we the way we do films has even evolved. First, we actually, for the last 3 films, the 17th, the 4th, as you were speaking about, and the 20th, Marcus and I actually, we work with a movie production company, which is why the production quality continues to get better and better. We probably hold back the pros more than the story does. But for the last one we did, the 20th degree, we learned something from Thursday Night at the Rite. The brothers want more and they want to be involved. And they want more and more and more. They want more of everything that's Masonic. And it's one of the lessons I hope we as leaders learn. They want more. They don't want less. They want to participate. They want to know you. They want to press the flesh. They want all of those things. So since we were out filming Thursday Night at the Rites across the jurisdiction, we actually took our auditions for the 20th degree. Every time we went to do a Thursday Night at the Rite, we planned an extra day and did regional auditions. And that's how we got these amazing actors, guys that are Freemasons that are actually actors. The George Washington looks like George Washington. He sounds like George Washington. The Benedict Arnold character is literally, you have a whole new way of looking at Benedict Arnold.
Yeah, I love that you use the term because you really are creating an all-star cast, basically. But that's the other beauty of it. Well, there is this Thursday Night at the Rite element, and this is really for the new and also current Illustrious members that want to come back and just kind of get a refresher or see some of these degrees perform this way. There still is that local valley portion, and it's still important because valleys do still confer degrees and still have their degree teams as well. Being able to see kind of a vision of what a movie or a produced version would look like and could act as some inspiration for a local valley on areas where they could improve or new ideas that they can incorporate into their cast.
One of the things that Thursday Night at the Rite has allowed us, especially in the last 2 seasons, we've already shot 3. Where on February 1st is season 5. One of the things that is great is because we're not making a movie when we go to Thursday Night at the Rite anymore, we're going with multiple cameras and sound equipment and lighting to film a stage production. We are able to now use it as an educational tool. For instance, a smaller valley that has kind of a lot of new members. They've actually never done the 19th degree. They may not have ever seen the 19th degree. So they give me a call. I send them the show, and they can sit with their cast and their crew and follow along with the script and say, oh, okay, now I get it.
Now, I became a Scottish Rite Mason during the worst time to do it, a pandemic in 2020. But I found it pretty easy to go through the application process. Has that changed at all? Does it start with a visit to the Scottish Rite website and filling out we would know it as a petition in Blue Lodge online?
You can do both things. Both things are available. We have the old paper process. The problem with the paper process is you actually have to know somebody that is a Scottish Rite Mason or Shriner or York Rite Mason who happens to have a petition in their pocket. The online system is actually much better than it was when you joined during COVID. We had to every single week increase the bandwidth of our website because we have so many viewers. Right now, we have 4,000 members that join a Thursday Night at the Rite. As far as the online application goes, it's even better and easier than before. If you don't say the valley that you're interested in, it will get you close to your home. It will immediately notify that secretary. If that secretary within a couple of days doesn't respond to you, he gets a phone call from the deputy of the state saying, hey, let's go. Let's not we have someone knocking at the door. Don't let them stand there.
I love also that one of the pillars of Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, as well in the Southern jurisdiction, is around not only the member experience, but also Masonic education. It's a huge part of it. And in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, you've really taken that to the next step on top of the Thursday Night at the Rite sessions. I've heard it referred to as the College of Freemasonry. What can you tell us about and I always screw up the pronunciation of this, I think it's the Houtsgrade Academy?
Close. So Hograd Academy, the same Sovereign Grand Commander that is responsible for allowing us to start Thursday Night at the Rite, came to us and said, hey, we have some brothers that have come up with this great concept. It's kind of like what the Southern jurisdiction does with their extra education, but it's a little different and they have it thought out. So Hograd is a graduate course of Scottish Rite. That's what it is, and we hope that when a brother really digs deep into the degrees and actually writes papers on it, that other HGA graduates and mentors read and critique, that maybe some of the things you're taking time to learn about and write kind of influence your life, makes you a more rounded person. You think about those lessons a little bit more.
It's interesting. In my installation speech this year at my lodge here in DC, I talked about how Freemasonry to me was a lot like a collegiate or academic experience where the 3 Blue Lodge degrees to me really felt like your undergraduate work that kind of set the foundation of the course. Going to become the master of the lodge to me really felt like going through an MBA or a master's level class, because now you're learning all of the parts of how to organize and run and basically lead a lodge. And I have a brother that's going through the academy, and I've told him, when you get your doctorate in Freemasonry from that, I want you to come back on the podcast and talk about this experience, because to me, that is really special when you have brothers that aren't just seeking the light, but they're also sharing it and writing about it at a very high level, but then also explaining it so that others can be inspired by it as well. To me, that's another really special part of the Scottish Rite that I just wanted potentially our brother that's listening now going, hey, this Thursday Night at the Rite, all these degrees, this sounds cool. I like this. And ooh, now there's this as well. Like, I feel like these brothers are taking Freemasonry very seriously into that next level.
It's hard also, Michael. It's very difficult. The rate of success is not 100%. It is like going to college, and you have to really dedicate it. It takes a long time to complete it. It can take a year to complete it. You're right. Our hope was that not only do they write papers that are important on the different values and principles that we hold dear, but that they take those and help others understand. And it's better for us if members of the Hograd Academy are teaching those values rather than at Supreme Council, us always sitting here preaching as if we have all the knowledge, because we don't. We're like you were saying with Hiram, we're all just people.
Really couldn't have summed it up any better. and what a great episode. Big thanks again to my guest, illustrious brother James Dill from the Supreme Council, 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason of the Northern Masonic jurisdiction. Thanks for coming on the Craftsman Online podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me, and for all of you, journey on.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Craftsman Online podcast and you want to hear some more, make sure to follow us on Spotify or hit the subscribe button so you can follow along with Apple Podcasts. We have new episodes for download every Monday morning. Until next time, let peace and harmony prevail.